Basically, given the focus of Society's conference on Design2Disrupt, I want to talk about a new term I came up with a while ago that I call destructive recreation. If you go back to the original dean of disruption was not Clay Christensen, it was Joseph Schumpeter, who talked about the fact that we have this gale of creative destruction that runs through the economy and leaving companies in their wake. And so the question is, how can in fact companies withstand that gale and thrive forever? And that's the focus of the next book that I'm working on with my colleague Kim Korn, on how companies can thrive forever. And today I'm talking about that in the context of four different things. That we used to think that we could produce goods and services and be successful. And now we must realize that we have to go beyond goods and services to staging experiences and guiding transformations as our economic offerings. We used to think that mass producing was good enough to be successful, and now we have to mass customize our offerings down to individual customers. We used to think that materiality conferred advantage, that the more weight that the corporation was able to ship around the world, the more successful it was. Now we have to realize that it's really digital technology that confers advantage. And then finally, we used to think that we could be successful just by doing the same things we've always done. But now we must realize we really have to destructively recreate the company over and over again, destroy what used to make us successful in order to create new advantage again and again and again to enable us to thrive forever. There is a class of companies that in fact should not strive to thrive, or at least not strive to thrive forever. I call them Heisenberg companies, that pop into existence, have a purpose that they're able to fulfill, and then go away and reform in different combinations with other people to form other companies. But for those companies that do want to last, that do want to create something of lasting value, then they really have to plan, and hopefully from the beginning, but if you're a big company, you have to now start to think about what is it going to take to be able to thrive forever. Because if you don't plan on thriving forever, it means you're planning on failing eventually. Every industry, every ecosystem, and all economies have this factor of creative destruction, where new companies and new innovations come in and they wipe out the previous companies and previous offerings that used to be successful. And so, and generally it is new entrants, although occasionally large companies can come up with disruptive innovations that really take over an industry. You can witness Apple, for example, doing it over and over again. What companies, the mistake they make though, is that they continue to keep doing the same thing that made them successful in the past. They keep thinking that if they do the same thing harder, that in fact they'll be successful once again. Instead, what they have to do is they have to destroy the old ways of advantage that they had and come up with something new. They have to transform, they have to reinvent, they have to recreate the company with new advantages that effectively disrupt themselves before somebody else does it to them. Hopefully the destruction and the recreation are ongoing at the same time, right? Otherwise you're going to have a problem. But what you need to do is that you need to ensure that before, if you look at the normal ways that a company's growth path, that before you get to the top and it starts to come back down again, then you have to already be coming up with that new advantage, that new company in essence that's going to take over from that as the old one falls away. You can look at a number of industries and see this going on, and probably the information technology industry, as we used to call it when I worked at IBM, is one of the foremost, where you can continually see new ways of destruction. Looking classically in the past, you can look at the development of mainframe computers and then how mini computers threatened them, and then you can look how personal computers threaten that, then client server, and then the shift to laptops, to servers, and now to tablets and to phones as computing, as all these successive ways of disruption that have gone through the industry. And in order to compete, you've got to figure out where your advantage lies amidst all of that. You look at a company like, my old employer again, IBM. It's now survived for 103 years. In fact, in the most recent issue of Fortune magazine, the CEO, Ginny Rometty, talks about the fact that the only way you survive 103 years is by constantly reinventing yourself. So the IBM today is not the same as it was when I left them 20 years ago. It's not the same as it was when I joined them over 30 years ago, and not the same as it was in its original success in computing, tabulating, recording machines, much less mainframes. It has to constantly change over what it's doing, invent new ways of competing, such as it's doing with cognitive computing and the Watson computer, which is a big bet. They're putting over $1 billion in this on something that has yet to be proven successful, but you've got to make those bets and use that to ensure the success of the company going forward. You do have to invest in new areas. You do have to take away investments from old areas that are still successful. One of the things that thriving forever means is that you actually have to forego short-term success. You have to forego short-term profits. And Wall Street, is not necessarily amenable to that, which is why you need to make it clear to them that you are investing for the long term. Because one of my basic rules is that if you have an offering, if you've come up with something that you think can cannibalize your own offerings, right, and hurt your short-term profits, you're obligated to do it. Because if you don't, somebody else will, and then you won't be prepared for that. You can look at Kodak inventing the digital camera and then never disrupting itself, always living off all the strength of the organization, all the power of the organization was based off of film until finally it was too late and there was nothing they could do. If they had foregone a level of profits for a decade or two before that and truly invested in experimentation, in exploration of digital technology, then they could have in fact succeeded and been the premier company in the space. In the book that I'm writing with Kim Korn, that we're calling The Laws of Managing, there are 7 different laws that companies have to follow in order to truly design themselves to be disruptive to themselves. And a couple of things are really key. One is every company needs a meaningful purpose, right? It needs a purpose that everyone in the organization can ascend to, and allows you to throw off the dictums of command and control and let people align, not with the commands, but with the purpose itself, so that they know when they're hired in. They know as they move through the company that they are there to realize this purpose. And it's a purpose that provides meaning to the company, to the work that they do. It's a purpose that should provide meaning to themselves as individuals. And if you do that, then you don't need command and control to be able to effectively make change happen. And then a second key thing is how the company learns, right? You need to continue to learn in order to thrive forever. And it's sort of well known that there's 2 basic types of learnings in a company. One is exploration and 2 is exploitation. Exploitation is learning things that extend what we already know, and that's getting us further advantage based on our advantage today, and you do have to continue doing that. But exploration is going outside of what we already know and exploring new things, making new discoveries that go beyond. And that's where the advantages of tomorrow are going to come from. And what happens in most big companies in particular, but even small companies, is that exploitation starves exploration, right? That we spend so much time on the advantage of today that we don't spend enough time and money on what's going to give us advantage in the future. And then also that when we do come up with things, like again, Kodak inventing digital camera, Nokia inventing touch on a phone, they don't get that back into operation to make a difference. So you need a third type of learning, and that's what Kim and I call orchestration. And orchestration allows you to foster, balance, and integrate exploration with exploitation, and then get that into operation so it makes a difference in what you're doing day to day, year to year. Nobody does everything that we're talking about. and perhaps nobody ever will. But the more you accept these basic laws, then the more successful you're going to be, the greater the chance of thriving forever. So there are many companies that have a level of orchestration. You can look at Google, for example. Google has its Google X Labs that is truly exploration out into the future. And what they do is that they give them the reins to be able to just go, develop the autonomous vehicle, and let's make an entire business out of that and keep it separate from the current so operations can't starve it for resources in that. It's got its own budget in that is independent of there. But then more importantly, actually, they have this new group that is called ATAP, Advanced Technology Advanced Project, something like the project. I can't remember the exact name of it. But ATAP at Google is modeled after the DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency of the U.S. government. In fact, took the head of that and is now the head of that at Google. And there, the projects are more practical, that they actually can affect current business. They can be more of a short term. But one of the key things that they do is that they give the project a true mission to come up with new offerings. It's not like most advanced research at IBM, for example, sort of blue sky things that you win Nobel Prizes for that may or may not make a difference decades from now. But in that case, they've got this exploration group that is much closer to the ground, and its mission is to come out with offerings that require advanced research to be able to come. And given that commitment, right, you make a commitment to do that, then you will figure out what it takes to be able to make that a reality. Yes, absolutely. The laws of managing, in fact, one of the laws of managing is specifically to foster destructive recreation. And we call it the law of vitality. That only an enterprise that attains vitality is effectively going to thrive forever. And that means you need to understand that you have to have at least as much innovation going on within your company as going on without your company in the ecosystem. Right? So in the ecosystem is all this destructive recreation creative destruction that is going on. And then you have to figure out, how do we create the same amount of creative destruction inside of our company, right, that exists outside or greater than exists outside. And that allows us to have a trajectory of vitality, that we always are more vital than the ecosystem itself. And that then ensures the destructive recreation that companies need. Regenerative managing is not a recipe itself. It is the principles by which you can develop a recipe for your individual company. So every individual company has its own way of managing, and needs to create a way of managing that's going to enable it to thrive forever. And so we like to call it regenerative managing as opposed to traditional managing of command and control. It's really about meaning and orchestration would be the best way to summarize what it's all about. Its hallmark is meaning and orchestration. But every individual company is going to do it differently. And they have to do it based on their heritage, based on the DNA, based on who they are. But I believe that every company is capable of developing their own set of managing practices and principles that enable it to regenerate its advantage, become regenerative, and thrive forever. It's funny you say that. Is that almost everything that I talk about, you can get down to where it applies to an individual. From moving from mass production to mass customization is, what are my individual advantages? How do I modularize my capabilities to be able to link them together in a way that allows me to respond individually to any situation that I'm faced? When you think about going from goods and services to experiences and transformations, what is the experience that I stage for my clients, and how do I help them transform to become better enterprises and create greater economic value? And in the same way, you can apply regenerative managing down to the individual. What is my own personal meaningful purpose? Why do I exist in this world? What change am I going to be in this world, to paraphrase Gandhi? and therefore I need also to, as you say, get rid of the old in order to take on the new. I need to stop doing things that I used to do and in fact was successful at in order to create the space, to create the time, to create the wherewithal to do something new that's going to continue to help my clients and therefore better fulfill my meaningful purpose as time goes on. There are a number of companies that I would love to help, would love to be a part of saving. I could never, save them myself. And number one on the list would be my old employer, IBM. You cut me, I still bleed a little blue. I love the company. I love what it has done. I love the way it prepared me for, for the role I have in the world now. And I would love to help it think about how it's truly going to not just survive, right, which was the word Ginny Rometty used. We've survived for 103 years, but how do you thrive for 100 more years and beyond? One of my favorite companies also is American Express. People always ask me, what company have you never worked with that you'd like to? Well, American Express is always number one on my list. I've been a card member since 1980. I think they have so much possibility for helping guide individuals' experiences. Manage the experiences that I need to have, that I want to have as I move about the world, given all of the information that you have about me. And so that would be a company that I would love to work with as well.